Welcome to the Football Film Room Show. I'm Nick Kehoe. We got another great episode for you today. We're going to talk a little bit about the Kansas City Chiefs and their 0-2 start. Is it time to panic? We're going to talk about Caleb Williams, also 0-2. The question around him will be more about, is he progressing the way he needs to be? We'll talk a little bit about the Colts and their surprising 2-0 start. Daniel Jones looking like a different man under center in Indianapolis. Micah Parsons, we'll touch on him a little bit, his impact on the Packers defense. But before we do any of that, I want to talk about Brett Favre. Now, this is related to the rest of the content today. Don't worry, we're going to get to all the Week 2 action that I just mentioned. But Brett Favre, grew up watching him. He was my favorite quarterback. He's who I tried to emulate. I played football, played quarterback in high school and then in college. Of course, I couldn't do half the things that he did. But, I mean, what kid in the 90s that was trying to play quarterback didn't want to be like Brett Favre? Right? Had a cannon for an arm, could make throws that no one else could make, would make unbelievable plays on the run, would make boneheaded plays, but overall, he was fun to watch. He was fun to watch because of those types of plays he made. He looked like he was having fun playing, but he was a gunslinger. He was exciting. Yeah, he'd make some mistakes, but more often than not, there was good to his performance. Some people might say I had an unhealthy obsession with Favre, and those people might be correct. Continues a little bit to this day. I do have a 4-year-old yellow lab whose name is Favre, and let's just say he's 100 pounds, energy of a puppy. He lives his life like Brett Favre did on the football field. Some good, some bad, a lot more good than bad, but just absolute fun and chaos. But anyway, Brett Favre, you probably remember him and know him now, whether you followed him throughout his career or you're new to football and you didn't get to watch him live. He was a fun quarterback because of everything I just said. Probably the stat that encapsulates who he was as a quarterback best is that when he retired, he held the NFL record for touchdown passes and for interceptions. But what you probably don't remember about Favre was that he was actually a pretty smart and precise player. He had to be to play in that West Coast offense. He had to be to win 3 MVPs, to win a Super Bowl, to go to 2 Super Bowls. And like I said, to play as long as he did at the level that he did. But obviously, as you all know, he didn't start off that way. Favre didn't enter the league as a polished player, and his first year, he went to the Atlanta Falcons and didn't hit it off with head coach Jerry Glanville. I think Glanville kind of gave him a sense that he wasn't wanted in Atlanta, at least by Glanville. And Favre took that, and I don't know if you would say he embraced it, but he kind of said, fine, I'm just going to go and I'm going to have some fun. He allegedly had a very good time that first year. I think showed up late to the team photo at one point. It was a train wreck of a first year where he didn't get to play much, and he looked like a wasted draft pick. And then the Packers picked him up in 1992. They traded for him, traded a first-round pick for him. That happened to coincide with the hiring of Mike Holmgren as their head coach. Now, Holmgren came from San Francisco, where he coached under Bill Walsh, was a West Coast offense disciple, and he got to see that offense executed at the highest level. Joe Montana, Steve Young, and it was a precise offense. It was a timing offense. It wasn't just, hey, if the defense is playing this coverage, throw the ball here. It was, I want you to throw the ball 1 foot in front of the receiver's numbers. Not 6 inches, not 18 inches, 1 foot in front of the receiver's numbers. And so that's what he brought to Green Bay, and that's what he wanted to instill in that Packers offense. And Favre, as you all know, he got the chance to play when Magic Man Don Majkowski went down in Week 3 of the 92 season, and Favre went in and was really flying by the seat of his pants. Didn't grasp the offense, was just leaning on his physical talent, leaning on that arm strength he had, leaning on that raw ability that he had, and he had a pretty decent season. Packers went 9-7. They didn't make the playoffs that year, but Favre threw 18 touchdowns, 13 picks, looked to be the future for that team. And Holmgren's duty, his job at that point was, all right, how do I get this Mustang? How do I get this stallion to understand the concepts of the West Coast offense and to play it the way it's supposed to be played, with precision, with timing? I was watching the John Gruden QB camp with Brett Favre the other day, the episode where it's just the two of them watching old film, and Gruden was on the Packers coaching staff back then. And Holmgren had him put together a cut-up of some practice tape of all the receivers' drops from Brett Favre. And they watched it. They showed the tape, and it was Favre just from like 10 yards away, winding up like a pitcher, like Nolan Ryan, and throwing the ball as hard as he could every single time because he wanted to show people how strong his arm was. He wanted to show people that he was special, that he could do certain things. And that's the way he played. He leaned on that physical ability. And as a result of that, it took a while for him to master the West Coast offense. After having that good first year in 92, he came back in 93. He threw 19 touchdowns and 24 interceptions. You could say he regressed that year. There are so many great NFL Films clips of Mike Holmgren just watching Brett Favre from the sidelines going, throw it, no, why didn't, what, don't, no, why'd he do that? All right, take him out of the game. And then he'd catch himself and say, all right, no, we can keep him in the game, but he's got to know he's screwing up. It was just, you could see it was just a frustrating battle for Holmgren because he knew how the system was supposed to be run. Favre was not doing it, but he had this immense physical talent. And like I said, that talent throughout Favre's career would get him in trouble at times, but it would help him make some spectacular plays, including that season in 93. In their first playoff game together, a wild card game at Detroit, with the Packers trailing in the final moments, Favre had one of those plays where, he didn't throw it, started scrambling, running around, moved to his left. He could have run it, but all of a sudden, for no reason whatsoever, he turns all the way back, or he turns back to his right, and throws the ball all the way back to the far right sideline, down the field as far as he can, and he hits Sterling Sharp in stride for the game-winning touchdown. So that was the type of player he was, but he needed to be harnessed. He needed to fit into this precision system. And it took a while. 94 came back and he threw 33 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. He started to get it. That was his third year. 95, he won his first MVP. They went to the NFC Championship game. 96, another MVP in a Super Bowl. 97, won his third MVP in a row, made it to his second straight Super Bowl. And then the rest is history. Hall of Fame career, set all those records I just mentioned earlier, had just about every passing record by the time he retired. Why do I bring all of this up? Well, it's very reminiscent, to me at least, of the Caleb Williams situation in Chicago right now. Now, Caleb Williams is a different player than Favre, but he is immensely talented physically, and he leans on that talent too much. Not quite like Favre. He doesn't turn the ball over like Brett Favre did. I don't see any 24 interception seasons in Caleb Williams' career coming up. But he doesn't stick with the play as it's designed enough. He wants to freelance. He wants to get outside the pocket. He wants to make plays with his legs. He doesn't know when it's time to give up on a play and just throw the ball away. You saw a lot of that last year, and very similar to Favre's first season in Atlanta. Somewhat similar. I mean, Favre didn't play. Caleb Williams played every game, but it was a disaster. A disaster for both quarterbacks. Caleb Williams had two offensive coordinators because his first one got fired midseason. Then his head coach got fired. I don't want to believe everything I hear, but there were certainly reports out there that Williams wasn't supported. So it just wasn't a great situation for his development. And what did the Bears do? They went out and got Ben Johnson. Just like Mike Holmgren, Ben Johnson comes in with this precision, timing offense, a system that creates a lot of completions, creates a lot of offense, but you as the quarterback, you have to execute it. And so it's Ben Johnson's mission right now, and will be for the foreseeable future, to just get Caleb Williams playing within the structure of his offense, within the structure of his passing game, and only turning to those unbelievable second reaction plays after all other options have been exhausted. But like I said, that's the battle, and it's not going to happen overnight. So I would encourage Bears fans to just give Caleb Williams some time. He's played 19 NFL games at this point, 17 of which were, I don't want to call them a wash, but it was just like I said, a lost season last year. We're only 2 games into the Ben Johnson regime. There's a lot of panic out there right now. There's a lot of, Caleb Williams and the Bears headed for a split. Caleb Williams is regressing, blah, blah, blah. I don't think he's been great, so I'm not going to give a ringing endorsement, but I don't think it's been as bad as many have been making it out to be. I think the fact that the Bears lost 51-21 last week or whatever it was sort of exacerbates the situation. If they lost 31-21, maybe we're not having the same discussion, but Caleb Williams doesn't play defense. And quite frankly, in each of his first 2 games with Ben Johnson, he has looked like he's making the effort to play within the offensive structure. He's been playing with timing. He's been getting the ball out. Not all the time. He's certainly been better early in games when, the offense has been scripted and the plays you're running are the ones that you're going to run. You've been working on in practice all week. Bears look good in week 1, at least to start. They look good at the start in week 2 against the Lions. And then everything just collapsed because there was just one play or one sequence, and then the Bear Williams couldn't get back on track. The offense couldn't get back on track. And the reason that the offense kind of went haywire after starting off well was that Williams was trying to do too much, and that's when he gets into trouble. Against the Lions last week, he threw an interception in the second quarter. I believe it was on a 2nd and 32, so it's, look, 2nd and 32, just play the field position game. You're probably not going to get a first down in 2 plays. Williams had pressure, wasn't his fault at all. He scrambled to the right, and then he said, hey, there's got to be a receiver down there somewhere, right? And he threw the ball up to a Bears receiver who was surrounded by 4 Lions defenders, and of course it was intercepted. The week before against Minnesota, a less egregious play, but the Bears were leading by 2 possessions, end of the third quarter. Williams has pressure in his face, tries to escape, and just instead of getting to the outside and maybe scrambling straight for a first down or throwing the ball away, tried to duck inside his offensive tackle. He tripped over his feet. Then he tried to get rid of the balls. He was going to the ground. It was an intentional grounding. It kind of set the drive back, and from there, the Bears missed a field goal. They were on the edge of field goal range. Vikings got the ball back, and from there, they kind of took over the game and went on to win. Those are just 2 examples of plays where playing outside of structure, Williams didn't know when to just say, hey, throw the ball away, live to play another day. He didn't know how to manage the moments of the game. And that's one of the things he needs to work on. But again, we are 2 games in. There is enough good on his tape. There were plenty of plays where he, maybe he didn't execute with perfect timing, but he was standing tall, firm, stoic in the pocket, getting the ball where it was supposed to go against the Lions and against the Vikings. Ben Johnson, if there's anyone who can get Williams to play in this structure, in a good offense, that's going to help him succeed, it's Ben Johnson and it's his offense. So all I'll say is just remember Brett Favre. It took him a bad year in Atlanta, 2 sort of up and down years in Green Bay, a 3rd year where he sort of turned the corner, and then by his 5th season in the NFL, he was the MVP. I'm not saying that's going to happen for Caleb Williams. I don't know that for sure. No one does. But give him the chance to fail. Give him the chance to figure it out. All right, moving right along. Let's stay in the NFC North, and actually let's stay in Green Bay. We were just talking about Brett Favre. Might as well stay in Green Bay. Micah Parsons, saw him play some more snaps against the Commanders in week 2. The scary thing about this Packers defense, and I alluded to this last week as well, is Micah Parsons is on the field, and he's playing well. He's doing just fine. But they are having success as a team without Parsons really being the reason or the driving force behind that yet. And that's scary because they shut down two of the best offenses from last season, the Lions and the Commanders. But last week, the Commanders, their game plan was clearly centered around when Micah Parsons is on the field, we are giving him extra attention. We are giving him all of our attention. There were plays with 2-3 blockers in front of Parsons. And for the most part, they were able to block him. But even with 2 blockers, even with 3 blockers, there were a few plays where he was disruptive and would eventually get to the quarterback and either hit him or hurry him or force him to get rid of the ball. And the one thing I'll say about the Packers and Jeff Hafley is I loved what Hafley did last year. I thought his coverages, his disguises, his sim pressures were great, and that went a long way in the Packers being so successful in general last year, but really taking a big jump on defense. I think he's going to figure it out, but he's got Micah Parsons. This is a brand new toy to him. He's only had him for 2 weeks. He didn't know he was going to have him, so he doesn't know quite how to use him. So to this point, he hasn't really taken advantage of Micah Parsons' presence. You look at a game plan like the Commanders just had that you're going to see other offenses do the same thing. They're going to slide to Micah Parsons. Their interior linemen are going to help out whenever they can on Parsons. They're going to chip. Teams are going to do whatever they can to make sure that Parsons just does not absolutely wreck their games. But Hafley can take advantage by bringing pressures on the other side, bringing sim pressures on the other side, so not even sacrificing coverage. I made this point a few weeks back when first talking about the trade, but a guy like Chris Jones over on the Chiefs, Steve Spagnuolo uses him to his advantage in key moments at very least. He'll align Chris Jones to one side, know that will make the protection slide towards him or give him extra attention, and then he'll bring pressure from the other side where the offensive line is undermanned. He can do the same thing with Parsons. Hafley can do the same thing with Parsons, and he hasn't done it yet. I think he's going to eventually, but that's the scary thing. That's how good this Packers defense can be. They haven't even scratched the surface with Micah Parsons as far as what they can do with him and how they can use him defensively, and they are still shutting teams down. It's early. Again, we're 2 weeks in. Someone's going to figure out a way to move the ball in the Packers. Then they'll have to recalibrate. They'll have to regroup, but the possibilities are there, and the Packers are going to be there in January. They're going to be somewhere deep in the playoffs if they find a way to utilize Micah Parsons to his maximum. All right, moving right along. A lot of talk about the Kansas City Chiefs. Is their run, is their dynasty done? They're 0-2 for the first time in the Mahomes era. Personally, I'm not worried. Their defense still looks to be pretty good. I know they had a rough game against the Chargers in Week 1, but I think that was more the result of it being new players and missing guys like Justin Reed, and there were some busted coverages that those aren't going to happen all year. They just have to kind of figure out how to iron that out. The Chargers caught them a little bit off guard with the way they threw on first down and used a lot of play action. They broke their tendencies from what they did last year, and that's going to happen in a Week 1 game. So no panic there on the defensive side of the ball. And then last week against the Eagles, they held them to 20 points with 7 of those coming at the end after an interception gave the Eagles the ball deep in Chiefs territory. So defense is going to be fine. The offense is really has been the question. But you're seeing, even without Xavier Worthy on the field, even without Rashee Rice, I'm seeing them wanting to push the ball downfield. And it's just a matter of getting back to doing that consistently. Their passing game has lived short and in the middle recently. Last year, you could tell that they wanted to push the ball downfield, but then they lost Hollywood Brown before the season. They lost Rashee Rice early in the season. They didn't have a lot of good options, so their offense morphed into this ball control offense that just, hey, let's make sure to convert on third down and keep the ball in our hands, but we're not going to be explosive necessarily. Doesn't matter, we can still win that way, and they almost did. They came into this year, I think, they got a guy like Tyquan Thornton, who's a speedster, a downfield guy. Hasn't had a lot of success in the NFL, but that's what he is. They have Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, it sounds like he'll be back. It's not as bad of a situation as initially thought in week 1. And then they're going to get Rashee Rice back at some point, hopefully before midseason. And that brings us to Patrick Mahomes. I think Mahomes, one of the concerns with him last year was just a desire to move when he didn't need to, wasn't looking downfield, wasn't accurate when throwing downfield. I have no concerns about him. I think through the first 2 games, he's missed a couple throws here and there, but he looks every bit like the Patrick Mahomes on film, I think, that we've seen in general. Maybe not flying on all cylinders, but still very, very good. There were a couple throws. There was one throw he made to Travis Kelce where he threw with such great anticipation in the middle of the field. It looked like Kelce was wide open, but he was only wide open because of the way Mahomes delivered the ball. He made a downfield throw at the end of the game for a big touchdown to make it 20-17. Again, arm looks fine. Physicality, physically he looks fine. He ran for, I believe, over 60 yards. So I think it's just a matter of they played 2 tough teams to start the year. They unexpectedly lost Worthy. I really can't say that I'm worried about them yet. They need to get their running game going, that's for sure. But, I think they've got enough on both sides of the ball. They play the Giants this week. The Giants, yes, I know they had a very good game offensively last week, but I have a tough time seeing the Chiefs losing that game to the Giants. I really do. So I think they'll get back on track. It's a long season, 17 games. I wouldn't be too concerned if you're a Chiefs fan. So again, I need to see more. I need to see more disaster in Kansas City before I actually think that they're not going to be there late in the season. And finally, that brings us to the Indianapolis Colts. The 2-0 Indianapolis Colts and Daniel Jones, Daniel J. Dimes. Now I know we probably wouldn't be talking about the Colts quite as much if not for a interesting, I guess you could call it, call at the end of the game last week against the Broncos. But as Bill Parcells said, you are what your record says you are, and the Colts are 2-0. They're at the top of the AFC South, so we're going to treat them as such. The big thing I want to talk about, though, is Daniel Jones. He does look like a different quarterback through 2 weeks, and I want to emphasize that through 2 weeks part because he's looked good at different moments throughout his career. He's had performances that are the best in the history of the NFL. It sounds weird to say, but his playoff game, I think he became the first quarterback in a playoff game ever to throw for 300 yards, run for 70, throw for 2 touchdowns, run for another touchdown, and not throw any interceptions. I guess that's kind of an obscure stat, but he was the first one to ever do it. His rookie season, I think he had several records. I think he had the most games with 4 touchdown passes and no interceptions by a rookie. I think he was the first to have 5 touchdown passes in a game with no interceptions. His debut against the Buccaneers had everyone in New York, and I'm a Giants fan, so I had everyone in New York saying, "Oh my God, we found one. We found one in Daniel Jones." But obviously things didn't work out with the Giants for a number of reasons. But now he's in Indianapolis, and look, he looks good. He has been making some throws that you didn't quite see him make with the Giants. The first throw of the game last week against Denver, he slid left in the pocket to avoid pressure that was coming from his right, and then he delivered the ball downfield, an accurate pass at the intermediate level with another pass rusher in his face about to hit him. You didn't see a lot of that in New York. If he experienced any pressure, he would kind of look to escape, look to run. He had good movement skills, but was never great within the pocket, moving, resetting, keeping a downfield focus. And you've seen a couple plays with the Colts so far where he has done that. Again, it's 2 games, so I'm not going to overreact here, but it has been very good. And I think the biggest reason for this, though, is Shane Steichen. Steichen has done a tremendous job of putting him in position to be successful. Last week, his game plan against the Broncos was great. instead of going and attacking, with the Colts receivers against that Denver secondary, which was the strong suit of their defense, Steichen made the decision, all right, we're just going to attack with our tight ends and our running backs. We're going to go after their linebackers, going to go after their second-level defenders. And he put together, there were 3 plays in the first half. 2 of them led to 40-yard receptions. 1 led to a walk-in touchdown. On every single one of them, they attacked the second level. They attacked the Broncos linebackers with a combination of motion, releases that confused responsibilities for Denver, and it forced Denver to just bust the coverages. Now, I don't know if Steichen saw that they had poor communication skills in week 1, or he wanted to go after their linebackers because they lost Cody Barton during the offseason, but it worked to perfection in the first half. 2 40-yard pass plays, 2 wide-open 40-yard pass plays on busted coverages, and a walk-in touchdown on a busted coverage. So you got to give Steichen credit. And again, Steichen, he took Jalen Hurts to the Super Bowl back in 2022. He knows how to manage, how to get the most out of a dual-threat quarterback. Prior to that, he was Justin Herbert's offensive coordinator during his rookie season when Herbert won Rookie of the Year. So he's been with different types of quarterbacks and has gotten a lot out of them. Now, it didn't work out with Anthony Richardson. Maybe he'll get another chance with the Colts. But so far with Daniel Jones, he seems to understand the things that make Daniel Jones tick. And in general, he so far has put together 2 very good game plans that have created completions for Daniel Jones. And then Jones, on his own, on those third down situations where it's up to the quarterback to just make a play, scheme is less of a factor. He's been doing a really good job. The Colts have not punted through their first 2 games, which is amazing. So we'll see how things continue. They have a game against the Titans this week. That's a dangerous game to me. I think the Titans have played pretty well against 2 very good teams in the Rams and the Broncos. Cam Ward is a dangerous quarterback, has done some good things so far, has made some miraculous plays. I wouldn't pencil this in as an automatic win for the Colts, but they've got a good chance of going 3-0. So I'm very curious to see how the Colts attack Tennessee and if they can keep this thing going for a 3rd week in a row. That's it for today's show. Thank you all for listening. I hope you enjoy a great weekend of more NFL football. It's already week 3. Can't believe it. Before you know it, it's going to be week 8. Then week 18, we're going to be talking about the playoffs. Before I go, I do have one small request. For those of you who listen to the podcast on Apple, iTunes, Spotify, or wherever, if you could go ahead and leave a review, hopefully 5 stars, that would be greatly appreciated. Certainly helps our cause. If you want to leave a written review, you can certainly do that. I noticed this week that there's one on there. It's by someone called Nantucket Mom. She says, handsome spokesman with good, strong voice, obviously very knowledgeable and loves the sport. Fun to spend the time with him. 5-star review. I'm guessing that that's actually my mom who wrote that one review on there. She has denied it, but I think that's her. Either way, I sort of like the angle she's taking. So if any of you want to leave a written review talking about how handsome I am or how soothing my voice is, let's go ahead and do that. Let's make that a thing. Let's flood these reviews with you talking about how handsome a guy that you've never seen is. Again, really appreciate you all listening. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.